with breaking news happening now. This is Wave 3 News.
Look at this live picture here. Smoke and flames roaring through the heart of downtown. We're watching this breaking news event unfold. The site of a major civic development becoming a dangerous situation. This is a spot, a must-see for tourists, known as Whiskey Row. And we have determined that this is 111 through 115 Main Street on fire right now. My co-anchor Scott Reynolds joining us live from the scene to fill us in. My goodness, those flames are intense, Scott.
The roof collapsed, and of course that just let these flames shed and shoot through the top of this structure, which is 6 stories on the backside as you get on the river side of the complex, and it looks like 4 stories from the front. It involves 3 different buildings, we're told, and renovations had begun here just a couple of weeks ago, and there was work going on in there today, though the fire department wasn't sure if it might have been torches or power saws or what might have been used in there that could have possibly sparked something that started this fire in the basement, and it has spread to a huge area, 100 feet wide and about 200 feet deep from front to back here. And again, this is just down from O'Shea's and Doc Crow's as you move down toward 1st Street from 2nd Street. If you were walking away from the KFC Yum Center and went past all those restaurants, then you would go past this building, which has had a lot of work being done on it. But again, none of it had been completed. A number of businesses were in there. Theo Keith has been here since it began. And Theo, you've seen this call. It came in at about 4:30, and this spread very quickly. There was a lot of wood and a lot of structure inside.
We got here about 4:50 this afternoon. The fire was in the basement and on the 1st floor. We've since seen it spread throughout the entire building, 4 or 5 stories tall. And since then, firefighters have moved us back 4 times. We're now a block away here. We were on the sidewalk right across the street. A building collapse is very real at this point. The roof is already caved in, and they're concerned that the front of that building might actually collapse. We did talk with fire officials just probably 5 minutes ago who updated us on the firefighting response. Take a listen.
We're bracing for a potential collapse, and of course with that, that's not something that we can control. We're doing our best to ensure that that doesn't happen.
And so here we are, about 75 firefighters are now on the scene. They're calling it a 3-alarm fire. What that means to you at home, 75 firefighters here. Some of the adjacent businesses you mentioned have been evacuated, some voluntarily evacuated, and some have closed for the rest of the day because of this fire, Scott.
And as you heard, Theo, the fire department spokesman here told me that yes, indeed, they're worried the facade could collapse. That's why they brought us farther back. And also a lot of the efforts are on saving that facade because it's such a huge part of the renovation going on down here to protect Whiskey Row and the old ironworks look to these buildings in downtown Louisville. Natalia Martinez has a different perspective for us from the backside as you get closer to the river on the other side where the Troll Pub would be and down there. What does it look like, Natalia?
I'm sad to say the building is collapsing right behind us. This has just started a couple of minutes ago. We saw the fire move closer towards 1st Street, and firefighters started moving trucks further away from where they believe the fire started. And now you can see a portion of the building has collapsed. The roof of it still on fire. There are huge flames and a huge cloud of smoke that can be seen from afar. We can actually feel the heat from where we're standing, and at times the smoke blows this way. There's a large crowd of people here, all in awe. Every time a huge bit of flames explodes into the air, you could hear them just gasp. A sad thing to see. You could tell that these buildings are probably not going to be able to be saved. There are several firefighters here. You can see that they're just trying to shoot the water from the top, and that wall is slowly starting to crumble. Right now, we're going to toss it back to Shannon Kogan for more information. You can also follow me on Twitter. I'll be posting live pictures there. Reporting live, Natalia Martinez, Wave 3 News.
Those flames are so intense, and that smoke too, and this is causing a lot of problems in the surrounding area. Meteorologist Brian Good is joining us right now with the wind and its impact, and also how firefighters have to try to fight this fire because of that.
You're exactly right. We've been tracking, you see there the smoke moving through the area, and we've had some crazy images. Let me show you one of our tower cam images real quick, and I'll show you some of our SkyTrack cameras as well, showing some of the smoke that is moving in now out of the south from the southern area, now moving into downtown Louisville. And now let me take you over to our Kentucky One SkyTrack camera. At times we have seen the smoke that has actually covered up portions of the 2nd Street Bridge as well, reducing some of that visibility out there. Let me show you what we're looking at here as we head through the next hour or two when it comes to the wind direction. First off, the radar is quiet. There's no rain to really provide any relief whatsoever, although the smoke is now showing up on the radar. It actually is detecting that drifting over the Ohio River into southern areas of Indiana. Here's the smoke field. You see downtown on the left. It's a due south wind right into Whiskey Row, so there's not much change in direction. It's blowing that smoke and the flames on the backside, and that is the concern. The backside behind Whiskey Row are those buildings, but as you heard from Captain Melendez there, it sounds like they've gotten it contained within that row of buildings that have been impacted, those 3 buildings, so it doesn't have to jump to the next row there behind it. So scary moments, I'm sure, and the winds a factor there, but at least the fire crews were able to get behind the fire and attack it from water on that side to hopefully keep it contained there, Shannon.
All right, Brian, thanks again. And let's take another look here. Air 3, a very important piece of real estate here in Louisville. So much history with this area known as Whiskey Row. The buildings on fire, 111, 113, 115 was going to be converted into office space. We know that the construction work there had just begun a couple of weeks ago. You see all of that water being put on those buildings, but so far the flames are still going. Right next door, 117, that is where the old Forester distillery will be going. That will be a working distillery. Work on that has not yet begun yet, and who knows if that building will be impacted by this fire or if the firefighters will be able to keep that contained to just those 3 buildings there. We are, of course, staying on top of it. We have a number of crews there on the scene. We're bringing you pictures on social media as well as wave3.com and the Wave 3 News app, and we'll be going back to this huge story that is no doubt impacting so many people in downtown Louisville tonight. Now this, crews continue to search the murky waters of the Ohio River for 3 people. They are still missing. After a pontoon boat capsized on Saturday, 2 people died in that 4th of July accident, including a 14-year-old boy, when the boat crashed into a construction barge under the new downtown crossing. 4 more people on board too were hurt, and this is a recovery mission now. The Louisville Metro Police Department leading this. However, the swift current and debris in the river has made it very hard to prevent the dive team too from searching underwater at this point. 2 CEOs, several thousand employees of Louisville-based Humana, and so many questions at a meeting this afternoon at the Kentucky Center. The leaders of Humana and Aetna, which announced last week that they would become one company, tried to answer some of those tough questions impacting so many people in our community. Wave 3 News reporter Janelle McDonald was there, and what did they say today?
You know, we don't know exactly because security was so tight inside the Kentucky Center and outside the Kentucky Center as well. You had to show a badge to get in there, but we did have some idea of what they said as thousands came to hear what their futures held.
This is not like the meetings you've been to at work. A lot of nervous energy and everyone on the dot on time to hear what happens when Humana becomes part of Aetna next year.
To discuss basically the acquisition and what's going to happen.
Company spokeswoman Kate Marks says Humana CEO Bruce Broussard wanted to talk to employees about why Aetna and why the time is now.
And then Aetna is expected to talk about what attracted them to Humana.
But you have to figure each employee really wants to know, what about me? Mark says the future of specific jobs hasn't been discussed ahead of the planned mid-2016 merger.
Between now and then, a planning team will be put together, and they're going to work to determine the best way to leverage each one of the company's assets.
We did learn Monday that Aetna's CEO plans to headquarter the combined company's government business in Louisville. It's a move that makes sense, says research analyst Ross Dimmerly with Hilliard Lyons.
Humana's strength is the government business, and Aetna's talking about moving that part of the business to Louisville.
Louisville's mayor says that means the number of jobs in our area will stay the same or even grow, as will the company's place in the city.
The Humana brand will stay alive. Obviously, it's been built over 50 years, means quality and consistency to consumers.
The public has been incredibly supportive of Humana and our talented associates, and we are sincerely grateful for that.
The Humana-Aetna deal still has to be approved by government regulators. Aetna CEO says no changes in leadership would happen until after the deal closes. Janelle McDonald, Wave 3 News.
Janelle, thank you. And let's take another live look right now at that huge fire burning Whiskey Road downtown. 111 Main Street is the address. About 75 firefighters right now dousing water on the building. We're going to go back there live with my co-anchor Scott Reynolds when we return. And once again, that breaking news story, live pictures right here of the incredible efforts underway on Main Street right now to try to save what is left of this building after a huge fire on Whiskey Row. Wave 3 News reporter Scott Reynolds joining us live once again from the scene. And you just interviewed Craig Greenberg, part of the group planning to renovate that building. Scott?
Yeah, and Craig is here to tell us that, they're still hoping to save that facade, because that's what people see when they walk down this historic street, is that beautiful front, that historic front to the buildings. They're concerned it could collapse.
We are certainly too. First and foremost, it's most important. Our understanding is that no one was in the building, that all the construction workers had left for the day. So, of course, we're pleased to hear no one was in the building. And, next our attention turns to continuing to save the buildings. This has been a group of committed, civic-minded investors and developers that are been seeking to save and revitalize these buildings, and we hope we still have enough left to continue to do that.
For people who know this area, O'Shea's down there and Doc Crow's as they walk down this street, what was going to go in there and what do you still hope to put in there?
We still hope to put a combination of restaurants, office space, and apartments.
And at this point, the other businesses haven't been affected. You have to be happy about that.
We hope not. We certainly hope not. The firefighters seem to be doing a great job, not just fighting our fires the best they can, but also protecting the other buildings around it. And so we hope they're successful and appreciate all their efforts that they've been doing this afternoon.
Craig, thanks for stopping and talking to us live. Craig Greenberg with the ownership group there, Shannon, and they had just begun a couple of weeks ago some of the construction work, and then the fire broke out, according to the fire department, in the basement. And on the backside toward the river, it's 6 stories tall, and they didn't even go in this building. They knew it was too dangerous. There were no occupants in there, so they felt they just had to fight it from the outside for safety purposes. That fight still goes on. There's still concern, Shannon, that the front of this building could come down. That's why they moved us back all the way from the corner here by Manny and Merle's, all the way back here closer to Market Street. We'll continue to bring you live coverage here as the firefighters, some 75 of them, still work to put out these flames.
Yeah, no doubt such a huge setback for them because they were planning to do so much with that building. Scott, thank you. We'll be back with more. You're watching Wave 3 News. Once again, a live look right here. All of that thick black smoke coming from a building that's on fire on Whiskey Row. It was under construction. It was going to be turned into some offices, apartments, restaurants. Work on that just began a couple of weeks ago, but now they're facing this. Wave 3 News reporter Natalia Martinez joining us once again from a perspective from the back of those buildings. And Natalia, you said that you've actually seen part of the building now start to collapse.
We have. Slowly but surely it has been starting to collapse. Just a few moments ago, actually, we heard a huge sound, and it was part of the wall that is behind the building on the other side of the street. It made people jump. It made me jump because it was so loud. It's apparently crushed a car. We're still being pushed further and further back, and it seems like the situation is getting worse because the fire is spreading more towards First Street. That's where we've been standing for quite some time now, and we've just witnessed the cloud of smoke get bigger and bigger, and large plumes of fire and smoke still coming out of this. And now actually you can't even see the building behind the building that caught on fire. There are several buildings there, but they've just been covered in smoke, and the fire has actually been moving towards the back of the building. That's where we noticed these huge flames jutting out, and that's where the collapse has already happened. You can see more fire trucks have pulled in, and they're starting to move closer this way. They've blocked off that street so that nobody can stand or walk by. Several people were closer to the building before taking pictures and video, but now they've been moved back as well. We'll continue to post pictures here, and if there is more of a collapse, I'll be posting that on Twitter, so we will bring you live coverage from the scene. Right now, let's go back to Shannon Cogan with more. Reporting live, Natalia Martinez, Wave 3 News.
All right, Natalia, thanks. We know firefighters have been there for a couple of hours now working to put this out. Still so much smoke. They never entered the building because they knew that no one was inside. But we do understand from Louisville Fire that it began in the basement, but then it has spread quickly. This is a very old building, and it was under renovation once again. We are going to stay on top of this, but we do want to also fill you in on the weather. Brian Good is joining us right now with a look at what we can expect for this week. Brian.
Yeah, thanks, Shane. And the weather obviously having an effect here this evening. Here's a live look at our Kentucky One SkyTrack camera. I have not seen anybody coming from Kentucky over the 2nd Street Bridge. A few cars from Indiana, and that's about it. Usually this time of day, the 2nd Street is jam-packed with cars. Not the case. I'm sure there's some closures going on at the foot of the bridge there on the Kentucky side. No rain to add some relief here. They really could use that. The wind is likely the biggest factor here. We've had the smoke show up here actually on our radar system, but the wind right now moving out of the south. Here's downtown Louisville. And you can see the smoke moving in due south. Here's Whiskey Row right in this area. And it's the reason why the back side here of Whiskey Row and the buildings behind it are in jeopardy. Now, they've had a lot of water added to this, and they're trying to keep it contained as much as they can to this row of buildings before it can jump to the row behind it. But you can see that south wind will keep pushing those flames backwards instead of going forwards there. We'll keep an eye on the trends.
And now back to our huge breaking news story that we have been following since Wave 3 News at 5 o'clock. A huge fire on Whiskey Row, a very important piece of real estate up in smoke. Scott Reynolds joining us live from the scene once again. Scott.
To give you an idea how big this fire is, Shannon, firefighters telling us that this building here, it's about 100 feet wide and 200 feet deep. That's how much of an area they're trying to put out. But really, they've concentrated their efforts on the front facade here to try to save the Whiskey Row front of this building on Main Street. You can see we're right next to Manny and Merle here. The parking on the side of this building. Impella Zaries across the street was evacuated because they were concerned the facade might collapse. We were told by Craig Greenberg, who's in part of this development group here of this property, that they hope it can be saved as they go on to build restaurants, offices, and also some apartments here on Main Street. We'll have much more, of course, coming up tonight on Wave 3 News at 7.
All right, Scott, yes, they had a lot of big plans for that building. This is part of the Main Street Revitalization Group. Also, Steve Wilson and Laura Lee Brown, the people behind Hotel 21C and Hermitage Farm, we're investing a lot of money into that building, hoping to make it a gem for the city. And so we have to find out what their plans will be after this once we can get inside that building to see what is left of it.
Yeah, a lot of unknowns on what's going on inside there. But right now, just getting the protection done, I guess, around it's the big thing right now.
Right, and it's been about 2 hours they've been fighting that fire.
Absolutely.
And we'll, of course, have much more for you coming up on Wave 3 News at 7. Nightly News is next.